Hey guys, it's Mathel here once again, and wouldn't you know it, we've smashed another character through the entire game to reach endgame and try out another skill, this time the revamped Ground Slam, and hell, it's actually pretty damn nice. It's been a while since I've actually tested Ground Slam once again. It's probably been about a year. I check in on it once a year or so, something like that, because it is an old school skill that we used to love, and it's just had a little bit of downtime in between leagues and patches and expansions because it has not been that good compared to other things. The rework, however, has given it a different graphic, I think, so it's less FPS intensive. It's given it some more area, it's given it some more damage, 50% more damage when you're up close to enemies as a pure more multiplier. As well as that, you now have Vile Ground Slam, which charges up pretty damn quickly, does not take many souls, doesn't have much downtime, and smashes the entire screen roughly for quite a lot of damage. So the Vile Ground Slams have been just about one-shotting things. Those are a few little Vile Ground Slams right there, for example. And just building into a pure Ground Slam character should net you quite a lot of damage. With the 50% more damage, with its high base damage, and with just the way it stuns things as well is pretty damn nice. So this character is an Inquisitor, full LE conversion, well, 90% LE conversion, Ground Slam Inquisitor, using Scepters with an offhand stat stick, which isn't anything too special, but it is still offhand stat stick for LE damage gains. We deal something like half lightning, half cold, and it's actually pretty crazy with how hard Ground Slam can hit wearing an Abyssus with all the crit multi and the potential bonus damage we can get from shaper items and all of that, that you can just about shock every single boss in the game, as you'll see just a little bit later on in these clips. The Vile Ground Slams hit so goddamn hard that you can take 10% off of every single boss's life out there. And you may notice that we do have Vile Double Strike in the build as well. It's really not necessary, it's just an afterthought, because basically on a melee character, if you can fit Vile Double Strike, you basically should. It's just that good. I rarely use it though, don't get mistaken, this is not a Vile Double Strike build. It's only used at the moment for really heavy bosses when you've charged it up a bit and you think you can afford to throw them down. But you can actually just use them whenever you want for every single boss if you'd really rather. I've only been using it for just the funner events, but otherwise Vile Ground Slam and Ground Slam themselves deal an immense amount of damage, and it's more than enough to not need Vile Double Strike. So you can see the playstyle, leap around a bunch, slam shit with some pretty decent area. The threshold jewels were changed, so you only need 2 of them now for maximum angle, and even then, you only really need 1 to get just a bit more angle to your Ground Slam to feel good enough for max area. So you don't even need 2 of them. So yeah, playstyle, jump around, smash some shit, and the Vile Ground Slams can one-shot boxes, area packs, and quite a lot of bosses too. So I think Vile Ground Slam being added into the build on top of the Ground Slam has made Ground Slam quite competitive to a lot of other skills. Probably better than a Sunder in single target, maybe not as good in clear, probably better than Earthquake in quite a lot of situations, and it's kind of a similar playstyle to Reeve in the end now, except you don't need any stack generation. So this is the first little example of some endgame DPS. We're talking tier 12 Elder. And you can global just about all of these bosses off of pure Ground Slam, War Chief, and then if you build them up, some Vile Ground Slam too. You can see that when you actually crit the chunks, the damage hits are absolutely huge, and you will be shocking a lot of these enemies, so the more shock multiplier comes into effect here as well as an Inquisitor with the larger percentage of non-damaging ailments, thus shock gains. And this tier 12 Elder was just an absolute breeze. I will be taking it hopefully into some Uber Elder, but it's not particularly a great choice for it. This Elder here, the actual tier 12 Elder, was probably one of the dumbest examples of damage I've had out there, and it's not even using any of the Vile skills yet. So you can see he's completely shocked, you can see the damage was crazy, and then you take on the portals, which get just about one shot 100% of the time, and you can really min-max this damage to be fairly insane. I don't think you even have to be an Inquisitor, something like a pure physical champion or Gladiator can take you quite a long way. The secret here being some fast attack speed, some good crit, and then the Abyssus himself. And this is what the damage can look like if you use Vile Ground Slam, if you use Vile Double Strike as well. And it gets pretty ridiculous. So hopefully we get to take on Uber Elder. I don't think it's going to be a great character for it because, you know, there's not much damage reduction, there's not much regen, but you can see that the damage right here is potentially there to be able to smash this shit extremely quickly. That's an example of not even using any of the Vile skills there, just smashing the Hydra with a lot of damage. And then that's an example of some really heavy hitting Vile Ground Slams. And it may look squishy, and it kind of is, but up until level 90 and doing all these Guardians, the character was deathless and thus hardcore viable. I ended up dying one time on this character, and that was to the Chimera Smoke phase, because the map mod had 60% slower regen, and because I'm wearing an Abyssus. So overall, I could have done this completely deathless all the way up to Shaper if I really wanted to, but it's just not really that kind of playstyle, and inevitably we were going to die, especially when going against Uber Elder, which is going to probably take me quite a lot of attempts. So to go over this character in full, it is currently a level 90 Inquisitor called Going Offline. Bit of a meme there. Took about 18 hours to get to level 90 and a half and get most of the endgame content down. And it is revolving around, of course, the Ground Slam gem. You can see quite a large amount of base damage there. 50% more damage to closer targets, so that's quite a lot of extra damage. And the Vile Ground Slam itself hits immensely hard once you get all of your like stacks and DPS up and all of that. So it is based off of an Inquisitor, which is, as always, doesn't penetrate but ignores all enemy elemental resists, and we are then fully converted, almost fully, with this node over here giving us 40% cold conversion, and this over here giving us 50% phys to lightning. So the strength of that then being that you can also use Shaper amulets like this, that'll shape a stat stick with a bit of extra physical as lightning, and then a bit of extra elemental as chaos as well. Just chaos span this one a little bit randomly. Got a couple of extra gem links for our Vile Double Strike, so you can house that there, but this one really isn't too important. Can sit on a 4-link, not even the greatest 5-link possible. But, like I said, based around Ground Slam with the Vile skill as well, and we're using Scepters. This one here cost me about 40C. It's roughly the same damage as a Doriani's Catalyst, if you just want to get started with any old weapon. The difference here being it's got slightly less damage, but it's got a lot more crit, so it's a lot easier to fill out the crit for this type of character with something like this. Ideally, you get one with much faster attack speed, because the attack speed on Ground Slam is quite shit to begin with, especially with multi-strike, so you really want to try and fill out a lot of attack speed and a lot of crit so that you get consistent smashes and consistent clear speed. Otherwise, it'll feel pretty bad to play, especially once you're factoring in multi-strike over here. So you do want to really ramp up your attack speed as much as possible. If you have a low crit base weapon, you're probably going to need to use a critical strike gem, this thing over here, like a Doriani's Catalyst. Then you probably need to use a gem like this so you can actually start to feel good about your crit. And overall, the 6th link at the moment is Ground Slam, Phys to Lightning, Melee Phys, LE damage with attacks, multi-strike, and Conk Effect. Most of the time we are running with increased area, and this is what the area looks like with that area. So it's pretty large, you can see, and fairly girthy. Once you chuck in your Conk Effect, it does get quite a bit smaller, but still substantial enough. And the 50% more multiplier to close targets you should be able to see is kind of just in front of the character in an orangey glow. So if you go this way, it's right about there. So you do have a decent amount of range to be able to hit for the 50% more, and in that area it does hit quite hard. So you can also see that it's a good tooltip whore of a character. A lot of the damage is going to be based inside the actual tooltip. So once you pop all of your shit like so, you get 700k tooltip. And compared to the actual damage on Path of Building, 1.4 million on Ground Slam, you know, it's largely in the tooltip. You can get a good demonstration of what you're going to be dealing with that damage, but of course the Path of Building is going to show you a much clearer version thanks to all the hidden shit like Intimidate, Inquisitor Ascendancy stuff like the extra crit multi, And of course, the extra Inquisitor shit here, and as well as that, you can, a lot of the time, tick enemies shocked for this shit, because we're a lot of the time getting max shock effectiveness here by shocking enemies so goddamn hard, but of course we're not going to do that. So the DPS there is 1.4 million on Ground Slam. The War Chief himself is pulling about 550,000, which is quite profuse, and the Volatile Strike, who the fuck knows, it's dealing a lot. So roughly the Ground Slam himself is going to be soloing things very easily. On top of that, you can add War Chief and then Vile Ground Slam and then Vile Double Strike, and it all starts to get kind of carried away. So the gear overall, basically Abyssus just carries you quite largely for your flat phys and your melee multi, and then you got your Tomb Fist, which carry you for some Intimidate, and then you got your dual wield stat sticking, which carries you for all of the additional damage. So all of that does mean it's kind of hard to balance your character around resists at that point, because you're already running a very large sort of amount of damage-based items with not very much life to begin with. So we do have to use a Temple Chest. This is the same one I've been using the entire league. They are pretty damn basic to get, not very hard to roll one of these. Ideally, a really strong Elder Chest would be much better with crit strike sort of chance on it. So the min-max on this character is actually quite high as a potential, but then we got, you know, Amulet like this, I think cost me 40-50C. This is my old Juggernaut's ring that I rolled. You do want accuracy somewhere. Flat Fizz is okay, LE damage is okay. You can kind of be pretty flexible about this type of stuff. And then same ring that my other Doomfletch character I think was running. The main stats here are physical damage, LE damage, life, bit of resist, and then just whatever boots to get some life resists. Same belt that my Doomfletch character was using. Abyssal Jewels aren't super important, but they are nice to get, so you get some life, some damage to attacks, both in physical, lightning, whatever, and some attack speed on crit as well if you can. Now Taste of Hate's pretty important in this build to negate some of the Abyssus downsides, so it is fairly important to get that if you're going to run an Abyssus. And then of course Lion's Roar gives you a shitload of damage against stationary bosses. The ones that get knocked back, of course, not that good on, because you do want to be closer up to them. As for our reservation, we are running Hatred and Herald of Ash for pure damage. When I actually map, I take off Herald of Ash and I use Herald of Ice because I do like the effect a lot more. That's basically the only difference though. It doesn't really help clear speed too much. It just looks a lot nicer to use a Herald of Ice effect. So the Helm socket ends up being Hatred attached to Herald of Ice and Herald of Ash, and then chucking a Lightning in there. I'm just leveling one at the moment, so you can swap between Herald of Ash and Herald of Ice whenever you want. Just get rid of Herald of Ice altogether if you don't care that much about the aesthetics of it all. Our War Chief is War Chief, melee Fizz, LE damage with attacks, and Fizz to Lightning, so that he's almost fully converted as well. You got your Blood Magic, Leap Slam, and Fortify for actual travel, and it's in a mace that has 20 faster attacks, so you do want faster attacks somewhere in the build. And then we have Blood Rage and Ice Golem, and Blood Rage actually serves as giving us additional damage because Instruments of Virtue has 50% increased attack damage if you've cast a spell recently, as well as 20 attack speed if you've attacked recently. So the attack's always going to be up whenever you're attacking, but before we start a fight we pop Blood Rage because it gives us an additional layer of 50% damage, and whenever you want the additional damage you do pop Blood Rage. We do have enough regen on the tree to make it still comfortable even with Abyssus. You got some there, some there. So you're not degenning anything even with Abyssus on, and that means Blood Rage is kind of okay, especially once you start leeching a lot over here. Now the jewels for the build are pretty much just going to be some attack speed, some melee crit multi, some crit multi wherever you can get it, but we don't use too many jewels because can't really get to them. The tree is very spread out, and then you use one rapid expansion. You can use two if you really want the additional angle, but it barely changes the area of the skill overall, so it's not particularly worth it. It's just there if you really want to go for the area. As far as leveling build is concerned, it's pretty straightforward. You just go through here and start just grabbing as much flat stuff as you can, because you won't be crit for a while. You run a Brightbeak for a long time. With a Princess offhand, you'll upgrade into a regular Scepter at about level 40 or so. you know, bit of flat damage, bit of crit, attack speed, whatever you can get. And then if you can't get some basic scepter, you just go for a Doriani's, use a crit strikes gem if you have to. There's plenty of crit on the tree you start filling out around level 50 or 60. And once you're around about the Inquisitor level, because we do grab these 4 nodes first, then these 2, then these 2. For now, that's probably all I'll say about this character. He's been pretty goddamn beefy. It is a bit gear required if you really want to min-max. So if you just want to try out some ground slam, and it's a lot simpler on your gear to just go champion, flat phys, bunch of physical damage, no real elemental damage to scale whatsoever. Don't quite have a passive tree up for you for that one. Maybe the Volatile Strike character can be very similar. Otherwise, Gladiator should feel nice too. This, however, is Inquisitor. The min-max is, you know, sky's the limit for that one. Don't even have an enchant, so that would be nice to get a nice angle, area, damage, whatever you can there. But for now, guys, this is the character. Hopefully I have an Uber Elder video for you, one where I'm actually succeeding and not just dying, because this will be a bit of a tough one, I think. So hopefully you enjoyed this one. Thank you very much for watching, and see you next time.